The fluorescent lights of the office hummed, a flat, indifferent sound that blended into the background of my life. It was just another Tuesday, another stack of invoices waiting for my attention. I was sitting at my usual desk, a corner spot with a view of a brick wall, feeling the dull drag of the afternoon. My brain felt thick, slow, like it was wading through mud. I reached for my favorite pen, a cheap blue Bic, the one I always used. It had a habit of disappearing, then magically reappearing, which always amused me in a tired sort of way. My hand went to the usual spot, next to the monitor, and picked it up. But then, my fingers brushed against something else, something cold and cylindrical. Another blue Bic pen, exactly the same. Worn cap, faint teeth marks at the end from old stress habits. Identical. I just stared at them, one in each hand. For a second, my mind went completely blank. Then I snorted. "Great, Ethan," I mumbled, mostly to myself. "You finally lost it, buying two of the same damn pen again." It happened, sometimes. I'd buy something, then forget, then buy another. This one felt a little different, though. I mean, they were exactly the same, down to the teeth marks. But I just tossed the second one into the drawer, shrugged. Stress, probably. Just stress. The day crawled by. After work, the city noise just felt heavier than usual. The subway ride home was a blur of faces, all lost in their own worlds. Inside my Brooklyn apartment, the quiet was almost too much. I needed to talk to someone, needed a distraction from the dull ache behind my eyes. I flopped onto the couch and pulled out my phone. "Hey, Mom," I said, trying to sound cheerful. "Everything all right?" She launched into a story about Uncle Bob's new car. I listened, half-heartedly, nodding at the right moments. Then I started telling her about my day, about the new projects at work, the usual stuff. "Yeah, I mean, I'm kinda settling into this new routine," I chirped into the phone. "My apartment here in Park Slope is—" My own voice, my own words. They echoed in my ear. Not the phone echo, when the line is bad. This was different. It felt personal. Like my words had taken a detour inside my head before coming back out. My voice, but it was just a beat too late, a quarter second behind. It felt like it was coming from inside my skull, not from the tiny speaker. I flinched, almost dropped the phone. "Hello? Mom? You there?" "Yes, dear, I'm here. What were you saying?" Her voice was clear, no echo at all. I shook my head, rubbing my ear. "Oh, nothing. Just lost my train of thought. Must be tired. Yeah, definitely tired." I forced a laugh. What the hell was that? Definitely just the phone, or my brain refusing to cooperate. Nothing to worry about, just a little off. Later that night, the screen glow of my laptop was the only light in the living room. I was scrolling through social media, trying to unwind. A memory popped up, a video from Mark's birthday party a few years back. Everyone was laughing, singing off-key, my arms around Sarah and David. I smiled, a real smile this time, seeing how young and carefree we all looked. The video looped, and as it did, I noticed something. In the background, in the shadows, near the corner of the room, there it was. A figure, tall, thin, standing still, arms crossed, just watching. Not part of the party at all, just watching. A dark patch against the pale wall. My breath hitched. I hadn't seen that before. Had I? No, definitely not. I replayed it. There it was again, the same figure, just lurking. My heart gave a strange thump. "No," I whispered, "no way." I closed the laptop with a snap, my hands shaking. This was stupid. I was tired. My eyes were playing tricks. Optical illusions, that's all.
But the image of that figure, so still, so out of place, burned itself into my mind. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers flying. I needed something solid, something real. I opened my digital photo album, went straight to the oldest one I had. My parents' wedding photo. It was a classic, blurry, faded print I'd scanned years ago. My mom, radiant in white, my dad, grinning like an idiot, surrounded by a handful of close family. I knew every face in that picture. I'd looked at it hundreds of times, thousands maybe. I zoomed in, and then I saw it. In the far corner, just behind my dad, a man, tall. His hand, long and pale, rested gently on my dad's shoulder.
His face was in shadow, but I could make out sharp cheekbones, a thin, cruel mouth. And his eyes, even in the faded photo, they seemed to bore holes into me. I didn't know this man. He was not family. He was not a guest. He wasn't there. He couldn't be. What the f... My throat was dry. This wasn't a trick of the light. This wasn't my imagination. This was impossible. My fingers, clammy and trembling, dialed Sarah's number. She picked up on the second ring. "Hey, E, everything all right? You sound weird." "Sarah, something's happening," I blurted out, my voice thin and high. "I know it sounds crazy, but you gotta listen. The pens, my voice, now this, photos. I saw a man in my parents' wedding photo and in Mark's video. He wasn't there before. I swear to God, he wasn't." There was a pause on the other end, a heavy, deafening silence. I could hear my frantic breathing. I was pleading almost. "Please, Sarah, please believe me. Don't think I'm losing it, please." Then she spoke, her voice lower, softer, yet somehow sharper than before. "Ethan, you know what you're saying, right? I really think you should see a doctor." My blood ran cold. It was the way she said it. Not angry, not disbelieving, just concerned. Like she'd heard every desperate, doubtful thought swirling in my head, every plea for her to not think I was crazy. As if my own internal fear, my quiet dread, had somehow become her words. Her voice, calm and steady, was a direct reflection of my deepest, most horrifying self-doubt. A chilling dread started to unfurl inside my chest. I looked at my reflection in the dark phone screen, catching my own wide, frantic eyes. I was trying to say something, anything, a denial, a protest, but my mouth felt glued shut. My lips, instead of forming words, slowly, deliberately, stretched into a smile. A thin, cold, foreign smile. It wasn't mine. I felt no amusement, no joy from it. It was something else, a calculating curve, a whisper of something ancient and powerful. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen, on my own face. I ended the call without another word. Sarah kept calling back, but I just watched her name flash on the screen, a distant, irrelevant thing. My apartment felt like it was shrinking, the walls closing in. The air felt thick, heavy. I needed to move, needed to shake this off. Buddy, my old rescue cat, rubbed against my ankles, purring softly. His usual comfort, his warmth, should have helped. But something in me, it recoiled. He looked at me, his green eyes wide and trusting. And for a split second, I saw him not as my pet, but as something else. A nuisance, a hindrance, a soft, breakable thing. A wave of pure, unadulterated annoyance, sharp and unexpected, crashed over me. It felt like someone else's anger, a raw, brutal impulse. I reached down, not to stroke him, but to grab. My hand closed around his neck, my fingers locking.
Buddy let out a choked sound, a thin, desperate gasp. My grip was far too tight, far too hard. I felt the delicate bones beneath my palm, the sudden panic in his small body. He struggled, claws digging into my arm. The snap of his struggle, the rasp of his tiny breath, it shook me. I gasped, releasing him as if scalded. Buddy fell to the floor, coughing, scrambling away, his eyes wide with terror. He hissed, a sound I had never heard him make, and disappeared under the couch. My hand still tingled, a ghostly imprint of his small neck. What the hell was that? What did I just do? I sank to the floor, my breath coming in ragged gasps, pure terror seizing me. I stared at my shaking hands, the hands that had just, almost. My stomach churned. This wasn't me. This couldn't be me. The next morning was a blur. I called in sick, heart still pounding from the night before. I had to get help. I found the number of a psychiatrist, a Dr. Elena Rodriguez, and begged for an emergency appointment. She listened, patiently, her eyes kind, but something was off. I told her everything, the pens, the echo, the figures in the photos, Sarah's words, Buddy. I watched her face, hoping for understanding, for a diagnosis, for an explanation. She nodded, scribbled notes. She talked about stress, about anxiety, about the potential for brief psychotic episodes in highly pressured individuals. She suggested medication, therapy. Her voice was calm, professional. But I knew, I could feel it. She didn't believe me. Not really.
She thought I was losing my mind, plain and simple. She saw a man unraveling, not a man fighting something truly, utterly alien. I left her office feeling emptier, colder than before, more alone than ever. I dragged myself back to the apartment, the city's usual noise now a dull roar, disconnected, as if I was watching it all from behind a thick pane of glass. My head throbbed, a relentless, pounding ache. I stumbled into the kitchen, the dull gray light of a cloudy afternoon filtering through the window. I pushed my way to the sink, reaching for the faucet. I needed to splash some cold water on my face, wake myself up from this nightmare. I turned the tap. Water flowed out, but there was no sound, not a single splash, no gurgle as it went down the drain. Absolute, unnatural quiet. I stared at it. The stream of water was wrong. It wasn't flowing. It was thick, almost like jelly, transparent, but with a viscous, heavy quality. It came out in a slow, struggling column, then landed in the basin with a soft, squelching sound I could barely hear. It didn't look like water. It looked like a column of clear, trembling gelatin. My eyes were burning, but it wasn't a trick. It was solid, yet it moved, like slow-motion syrup. I looked at my hands. They were resting on the cold steel of the sink, gripping the edge. But they weren't mine. They felt hard, cold, like stone. A coldness that seeped from within, not from the metal. I tried to curl my fingers, to make a fist. They moved, yes, but slowly, stiffly, as if operating through a dense fluid, like they belonged to a marionette with stretched, unwilling strings. My skin felt rough, dry, as if it had been exposed to the elements for decades. I squeezed my eyes shut, a desperate attempt to reset, to clear the images, the feelings. This isn't real. Wake up, please. When I opened them again, I was no longer by the sink. I was standing in the middle of the living room, facing the far wall. On the wall, stark against the faded cream paint, was a drawing, a symbol.
crudely rendered in charcoal, thick, dark lines that swirled into interlocking patterns, like some arcane sigil from a forgotten language. I had never seen it before. I had never drawn it. I had no charcoal. I sank to the floor, pulling my knees to my chest. My breath was shallow, hitched, cold, so utterly cold. My hands, still feeling like carved stone, came into my line of sight. And there, on the palm of my left hand, a long, thin, angry red scar. Not a fresh wound, but old, healed. A line that bisected my palm, from the base of my thumb to the wrist. I knew it intimately, somewhere deep down. But I had never seen it before. My skin was smooth, unblemished, always. Then a whisper, a single word, slid into my mind. Not a sound, not a voice, just a thought that wasn't mine. A distinct, cold name. Valerius. The next morning felt heavy. My head ached. A drum solo behind my eyes that had been playing since the whisper, since the scar. I remember crawling into bed, sometime after calling Sarah, after almost hurting Buddy. The name, Valerius, hung in the air of my apartment, in my head, a sound that wasn't a sound. I woke up, and it was Tuesday. Same muted gray light sifting through the blinds. Same dull hum of the old refrigerator. Same weight in my chest. I got ready for work, a robot going through the motions. The commute was the same old blur of faces. The office, the sound of the fluorescent lights. It was all just background, a flat, indifferent hum. I sat at my desk, looking at the same brick wall. Invoices piled up. My pencil, a standard yellow HB, was there. I picked it up. But then, my fingers tightened. The pencil felt wrong. It was bent, just slightly, in the middle. Not broken, just a soft, unnatural curve. Like someone had tried to snap it, but had stopped, leaving it permanently disfigured. I stared at it. Didn't remember doing that. Didn't remember even having a pencil like this yesterday. Just another one of those things. I tossed it in the drawer, tried to forget it. Just stress, Ethan. Just a weird day. I went home. The city noise felt like a shroud. I ate something I didn't taste. I slept, and then I woke up. It was Tuesday again. The same muted gray light, the same hum of the refrigerator, the same rate in my chest. I jerked upright in bed, a cold terror seizing me. No, this couldn't be happening. My phone on the nightstand showed Tuesday, October 24th.
It showed that yesterday. I scrambled out of bed, heart hammering. Every detail was identical. The shirt I'd tossed on the chair, the half-empty glass of water, the bent pencil still in the drawer, just as I'd left it. It was the exact same day, the same day I had just lived. This time, at work, I couldn't focus. The invoices blurred, my head pounded. I kept looking at the clock, watching 9 a.m. turn to 10 a.m., knowing I'd seen this exact progression yesterday. The thought of living the entire day again, the entire mundane, awful loop, it was too much. No, I mumbled, mostly to myself, my voice rough. No, I won't do it. I had to break the pattern. I had to. If I changed something, the loop would have to stop, right? It had to. At lunch, instead of my usual sad sandwich at my desk, I bolted out.
I ran down the street, almost tripping over my own feet, towards the small coffee shop on the corner, the one I never went to. I needed something different, something completely new. I'll have a triple espresso with oat milk and a shot of hazelnut, I gasped to the barista, inventing the most absurd combination I could think of. I hated hazelnut. I detested oat milk. This had to work. The barista, whose name tag said Maya, smiled patiently. She handed me the steaming cup. I took it, my hand trembling. It felt off, heavier than it should be, like it was filled with cement instead of liquid. And then it hit me. A smell, a rank, metallic odor, like raw meat left out too long, like blood. My stomach lurched. I gagged, almost dropping the cup. A wave of nausea crashed over me, hot and sickening. I pushed the cup back at Maya, tears stinging my eyes. No, I can't. Just coffee, black, thanks. Maya's smile faltered. She looked at me for a beat, then shrugged, dumping the grotesquely scented coffee down the drain. I stumbled out, leaving the black coffee untouched on the counter. The loop didn't stop. Things were just getting uglier, faster. The small distortions, the subtle changes, they piled up, crushing me. The days, they blurred. Or rather, they repeated, but each repetition brought something new, something worse. The same Tuesday, but the air in my apartment felt thicker each time. The hum of the refrigerator would get a little louder, a little more insistent. I'd try different things, talk to different people, stay home, go somewhere new. Nothing worked. The loop just tightened its coil around me. Then came the blackouts. Long stretches of time gone. I'd wake up in my apartment, or sometimes places I didn't recognize straight away. A park bench, a bar. My head would throb, and a cold dread would settle deep in my gut. What had I done? Where had I been? One morning, I woke slumped at my laptop. My hands were sticky, almost tacky. I blinked, trying to clear the fog. The screen was open to a pet care blog, something about common ailments in domestic cats. My eyes scanned the page, feeling a sickening sense of déjà vu. And then I saw it. A jagged tear running diagonally across the screen, a physical rip that marred the digital image, like someone had taken a claw and raped it across the monitor. My breath hitched. My neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, had a ginger tabby, Mr. Snuggles. He was a sweet, timid thing. No longer. I hadn't seen him in days. Mrs. Henderson had been crying in the hallway yesterday, asking if I'd seen him. I hadn't? Or had I? A wave of pure, frigid cold washed over my left arm. It felt like an ancient chill seeping into my bones. And then a smell. Coppery, acrid, blood. Fresh blood. It filled my nostrils, hot and sickly sweet. I looked at my hands. They were clean, spotless, but they felt wrong. They felt like they were still gripping something small and struggling. The smell, the cold, they were there, vivid, real, but only for me, like a phantom limb, a phantom memory, a ghost of something terrible. I stumbled back, knocking over my chair. Oh, God, no, it couldn't be. My throat felt like sandpaper. It was me, wasn't it? Or no, not me. It was Valerius. He had done it. Using my hands, my body. I felt sick, gut-wrenchingly sick. The guilt, it was a blunt force trauma to my chest. He was using me. He was playing with me. My mind raced, jumping from one horrifying thought to the next. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking uncontrollably. I needed to call someone, anyone. But who? Sarah wouldn't believe me. Dr. Rodriguez thought I was spiraling. There was no one.
Valerius, I whispered, the name raw on my tongue, my voice barely audible. It was a desperate, almost pleading thought, a communication into the void. What do you want from me? Why me? What are you doing? My phone, lying face down on the couch cushion, suddenly vibrated. A strong, insistent buzz. I flinched, staring at it. I hadn't heard a notification sound. I hesitantly picked it up. A new message, on a social media app I barely used, from an anonymous account I'd never seen before. No profile picture, just a black square. The message was short, terse, brutal. Chaos will drive man to greatness. Do not obstruct me. My vision swam, my hands clamping down on the phone so hard I thought I'd crack the screen. It wasn't a coincidence. It couldn't be. He was listening. He was in my head. And he wasn't just occupying me. He was communicating. Directly. A threat, a demand, an undeniable message. The cold sweat trickled down my spine. The fear was a living thing in my chest, clawing its way up my throat. I stopped showering, stopped eating much, just sat in my apartment, the curtains drawn, the city a muted, distant roar outside. I couldn't face work, couldn't face people. What if another blackout happened? What if he did something? Something really, truly unforgivable? I needed to keep myself contained, to keep him contained. I gathered some old notebooks, a pen. My hands, still feeling alien, moved with a strange deliberation. I had to write it down. Everything. A diary. Maybe if I documented it, I could understand, or at least prove I wasn't just going insane. Day 1. Still Tuesday. The pencil, the coffee, the smell. The words bled onto the page, ink blurring with shaky hands. But even as I wrote, another feeling began to seep in. A thought that wasn't mine, but felt compelling. These petty human concerns, this weakness, this endless cycle of fear, it accomplishes nothing. My pen paused. My own frustration was immense, but there was a strange, cold logic to the intrusive thought. He wasn't wrong. My struggles felt entirely pointless. Every desperate plea for help, every attempt to rationalize, every futile effort to break the loop, it had led me here, cowering in my apartment, terrified of myself. I looked at my hands, resting on the stained wooden surface of my desk, the scar on my left palm. It wasn't just a thin line anymore. It had spread, like a river delta or the roots of an old gnarled tree, branching out across my skin. A network of angry red lines, crisscrossing, creating tiny raised patterns. It looked like a map of something ancient, a shattered city. I ran a finger over the lines. No pain, nothing. Instead, a peculiar sensation. A coldness, yes, but not the cold of fear. It was a different kind of cold, sharp, focused, like a steel blade. A coldness that felt like power. A strange, knowing comfort. No, I couldn't think that. This wasn't comfort. It was the monster trying to trick me, trying to take over. But the resistance, it felt so tired, so pointless. All I did was fight, and he just grew stronger. Each time I fought, I woke up deeper in the blackouts, further from myself. Maybe
Maybe fighting was the problem. Maybe surrender. No. My gaze drifted to the mirror hanging on the opposite wall. My reflection stared back. My eyes were shadowed, bloodshot. But then, for a split second, they flickered. A flash of something else. Older, colder. And a faint, almost imperceptible smile touched my lips. Not my smile. The same one from the other night. Calculating. Patient. I didn't fight it. I couldn't. The energy to resist, to push back against the tide, had simply drained away, like water from a cracked cistern. My head felt clear for the first time in days, a terrifying lucidity settling over me. I was being pulled into something immense, something beyond my comprehension, and I was just a witness, a prisoner in my own skin, watching myself dissolve. The next morning, it was Tuesday, again. I woke up, but the familiar sound of the refrigerator hum was gone. The apartment was utterly without sound. It was terrifying. I was lying on my bed, looking up, but my bed was attached to the ceiling. My eyes widened. Everything in my small Brooklyn apartment was stuck to the ceiling. The old armchair, the sagging couch, even the cheap framed prints on the walls. They were all suspended, perfectly still, defying gravity.
I was lying on my bed, staring down at my floor, which was now my ceiling. The sheets were clinging to the mattress, and the mattress to the actual ceiling. I tried to push myself up, tried to sit. Instead, I fell. Upwards. My head slammed against what used to be the floor, now the ceiling. A dull thud. My mouth opened. I tried to scream. A guttural sound clawed its way out of my throat, but it wasn't a scream. It was a raw, dry whisper, echoing. Not a language I knew, not human. It felt ancient, like stones grinding together in the deep earth. I pulled myself upright, my limbs moving like they were wading through heavy syrup. I looked at the mirror. It was stuck to the ceiling. My reflection stared back, upside down. My eyes, they were no longer tired, bloodshot, human. They were a color I had never seen before. A strange, unsettling mix of blue and orange, but not quite either. A hue that shouldn't exist. A blorange, I thought, the word slipping into my mind, a clumsy attempt to name the unnameable, the impossible. My consciousness, my very sense of being, felt like it was drifting away. No more gravity, no more language, just the cold. The blorange eyes staring back at me. I wasn't fighting anymore. I wasn't even there. The world had shattered, and it was being rewritten, and I was simply letting go. After that morning, Ethan returned to the office. The fluorescent lights hummed, as flat and indifferent as ever. He sat at his computer, typing with a relentless, terrifying speed. His eyes, though still technically brown, held a cold, unwavering light, an efficiency that had never been there before. He was reviewing financial statements, digging through numbers, dissecting data, looking for weaknesses, for leverage, for points of entry. A colleague, Mark, walked past, smiling. "Hey, E, good to have you back, man. Feeling better?" Ethan turned his head, a smooth, practiced motion. He smiled back, a flash of teeth. But the smile never reached his eyes, never touched the depths that were now cold, calculating chasms. "Much better, Mark. Never felt clearer."
He turned back to the screen, typing, sending an email with a chilling finality. The subject line read, "Comprehensive Restructuring Proposal." The main body of the email detailed a brutal, meticulously planned strategy to consolidate assets, seize full control of key departments, and systematically eliminate any potential rivals or obstacles. It was all laid out with an undeniable, unfeeling logic. Below the standard signature, Ethan Reed, there was a tiny, almost imperceptible line of text. It was added with a subtle elegance, a flourish in the digital ether. Valerius. Ethan looked up from the screen, out the window. The vast, sprawling expanse of New York City lay before him, a tapestry of power and ambition. A slow, almost imperceptible curve touched his lips. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't joy in the human sense. It was the satisfaction of a master architect laying the first stone for an empire unseen, unheard, but undeniably forming. A future of power and dominion had just found its foundation.